So recently on my live stream, I asked about 1,000 people if they had any interesting or paranormal stories to share, and I was just blown away by the amount of unique stories that people had to share, like countless experiences that varied from like what they saw, what they heard, what they felt. So I brought people in for interviewing. I recorded a bunch of these, and these are about the 5 best ones that I could find, or the ones that stuck with me the most. I think it's important to note before we continue that these are all just normal people that watch this channel just like you. They're not as far off and distant as you'd really like to think when you hear stories like this. Like, I've never had a paranormal experience personally, and if you're listening to this, you may not have, but I do think it is important to note that this could happen to anybody at any time, and, nobody's safe. All these were recorded within the last week. Some of them happened as recently as last year. And before we go into it, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone that submitted a story. Thank you for all the people that came in to record. And thank you to all the people that I included in this video. Welcome to the itswill Halloween Special.
Me and my friends, for a few years, our hobby was exploring like all like these haunted places and like abandoned places. We went to the Conjuring House at one point, and we took a trip to Pennsylvania one time to check out Eastern State Penitentiary. I know it's been on a couple of those ghost hunted shows, and all those were pretty cool. But yeah, about 3 years ago, over the summer, we rented out an Airbnb in this small ass town in Maine. And in this town, there's like one main road, and that's it. And we're driving down that road, checking out all the places, and we see like this like dirt road right off the main road, and like trees are covering it. It just looks spooky like right from the beginning. So we're like, all right, we got to go down there and check it out. So we drive down. The road's not too long. It's like maybe like a quarter of a mile. But we drive down the road, and the trees open up, and we see like this abandoned hospital. And it's, again, the town's really small, so the hospital's not like huge. But we're like, oh, this is awesome. It's like, we got to come back at night and check this out. So we leave, and then we come back at night. And the front entrance and the back entrance were both like chained up, locked. We couldn't get in. So what we had to do is we found a ladder laying down on the ground on the side of the building. And so we took that, and we had to stand it up and climb up to the second story, which was the top floor, through like this broken window. So we do that, and we're like, all right, let's just start at the top floor, seeing as we're already up here, and just work our way down. And so we're walking around, and you could tell like homeless people lived there, for a while. And it's been vandalized by a bunch of people. There was broken windows all on the top floor and the first floor. And it's pretty creepy, but nothing's really crazy. So we make our way through the top floor, make our way through the first floor, and then we find the staircase leading into the basement. So we're like, all right, let's check it out. So we go down in the basement, and as soon as we get to the bottom of the stairs, like it was kind of like a lobby type area at the bottom, but there was this huge pentagram spray painted onto the ground, and at each tip was a candle that somebody placed there. They weren't lit, but immediately creepy vibes spooked the hell out of all of us. We're like, all right, this is weird. In the corner of the lobby was it looked like a lazy boy, like a 1950s lazy boy, but it had like this metal bowl that went on top of your head. We did some Google search later, and they used to use it for like electric shock therapy, and it's just sitting there in the corner of the room still, like just nobody like took it. Well, when the place was abandoned, they just left it there, which was super weird. So immediately we're all like, all right, this place is freaky. It's like, I don't know how long I want to stay here, but like, let's check it out. We're already here. So there's one long hallway, and we're just making our way down the hallway a little bit. And one of my friends says, it's like, yeah, guys, abandoned hospital, but the scariest part of this whole place was this pentagram spray painted on the ground. And I swear to God, as soon as he said that, every door in this hallway just boom, slammed shut. I'm talking like probably like 24 doors all at the same time, just boom, slam shut. We all ran, did not stop to think what the fuck was that. We just ran, got the fuck out of there as soon as we could. And remember, we are in the basement. There's no breeze, there's no draft, there's no broken windows. We're in the basement. don't know what caused it, how else it could have happened, but I didn't care enough to stick around and find out. We got in our car and we just fucking screwed and never went back. And actually, on our way back to the Airbnb, two of our tires got flat. We checked the tires and there is like 6-inch nails like in the two rear tires, and we're like, there was no nails on the road on the way up. There was no nails. So as far as that goes, I don't know if like somebody else showed up and was like decided to fuck with us or mess with us, but when we went there during the day and when we drove up at night, there was no nails, no nothing on the ground. And how two ended up in our tires, very freaky. I didn't like it. I would never go back to that hospital. It was in Kittery, Maine, right off US 1. And I've been to a few of these places. A lot of them are creepy, a lot of them are spooky. That is one I would never, ever, ever in a million years go back to.
This one really got me good because it's the only story that the main person was seeking out something paranormal. And while it did scare me, I know that I would never in a million years go and do something like this. So to me, it's more of a cautionary tale because I mean, I've never had any super paranormal experiences. And even as I'm recording this, I'm scared of, digging too deep, but I do think that there is something to be said about people that put themselves out there trying to experience something paranormal and how that can just go terribly south very quickly. So more of a cautionary tale, this one. Don't go to an abandoned hospital at 3 a.m. Don't order the Among Us Happy Meal at 3 a.m. Don't go to Toys R Us at 3 a.m. Don't go on the phone with the Grinch at 3 a.m. Don't answer the Elmo call at 3 a.m.
All right, so this story took place about 11 years ago. So I must have been about 13 years old, and we went to visit my uncle and my aunt's place down in Cornwall. It was in a little place called Kennel Vale, which, there's some stories about the woods around there being haunted. I didn't know too much about it at the time. I only found out after these events. But anyway, so we'd often go down to stay there. We stayed there maybe twice a year. And you've got this old farmhouse, probably about, 200 years old, something like that, adjacent to this kind of old viaduct. And at the end of their kind of backyard, you've got this pretty extensive woods in a kind of a small valley with a stream. So, often me and my cousins would kind of play around in there. And one day I was there with my cousin Rosa, and, we were just doing something. She was kind of off, about 20 meters away from me. And I walked slightly further down this little ditch towards the stream. And I was just like surveying the landscape, not looking for anything in particular, just kind of looking around. And then about, I'd say like 50 meters away, I see this thing. I can only describe it as some sort of black entity. It was like about 6.5 foot tall. It was so it had no torso per se. It had legs and a head. And like the shady robes, whatever you got, the ghostly robes, that's it, from Osiris. The body that was there was kind of like that appearance, right? But equally, if you were to look, when you look at tarmac on a really hot day and you can see it kind of wobbling, but you can see it was basically, it looked like that. So it looked like almost like a gas, I guess. And, I fixated on this thing for just a few seconds. Probably, it must have felt a lot longer, but it was probably about 2 seconds. I saw this thing disappeared behind a bush, and I was not hanging around to, know what happened. So I just legged it in the opposite direction, and I ran to my cousin, and I was in shock. I couldn't cry, I couldn't do anything. I was just like, let's just go. And my cousin was like, what? She kept asking me, what's that? I got back into the house, and I was like, white. My cousin remembers telling me this. I was like, white as a ghost. Ironic, right? But anyway, so pretty much every other night that I've been staying at that house, and I normally stay in like my cousin's bedroom, which has a window facing out into the woods. And if ever I got up in the middle of the night to go piss or something, I would always like put my head down and just look at the floor as I walked to the bathroom, because there's like a big old like bay window in the corridor from the bedroom to the bathroom, and I would never look out that window, I remember, in case, God forbid, I looked out there and there it was again. And that was over a decade ago, and I've tried to suppress these memories, but my God, man, you've brought it all up again. You've undone me.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to unzip this trauma that you have. I apologize. The haunted woods one, man. This story really just the thing that he saw really stuck with me for some reason, because when he was describing like the hot tarmac, I had just never heard any being described in that way, and it just really, I don't know why it bothered me so much. But the more I looked into this one, if you caught it at the beginning, he said that it was a place called Kennel Vale, and so I decided to look it up. Kennel Vale was historically a place where they like had gunpowder factories, and apparently there was a lot of accidents, a lot of workplace violations, and a lot of deaths at these workplaces. And apparently these woods are haunted by the people that used to work at these factories. As recently as last year, local photographer Paul Richards had noticed some strange effects on some of his images in the valley. There was inexplicable blurring in the depth of field. Many walkers in the woods have reported hearing unexplained loud noises, the echoes of explosions and disembodied voices, shouting, as well as sightings of tall, dark figures in the woods. The most recent event, in March of last year, a strange sighting was reported in the papers when Tina Marie found a shadow person in a photograph she had taken while walking the nature reserve. I'll include the photograph. This gave me chills. This freaked me out. I was sitting here recording this, and I decided to start looking this up, and I got goosebumps, because I was like, this is exactly what this guy described, independent of all of these things. He didn't even know. I asked him about it, and he was like, no, I just heard that there was paranormal stuff happening there. I didn't actually look up what it was, because it's like something that happened to me so far in the past in my life that I didn't really want to get back into it. So I've probably really opened up that guy's trauma at this point, and he's never going back to Kennel Vale, but at least it makes a good story,
The story starts out when I was like about 12 years old, and my sister was around 5 years old at the time. And we're moving to like this new town that we haven't lived in a very, very long time, since I was born. And so we moved to this house, and like obviously me being like curious, I like asked who the previous owner was. Turns out there was this older lady who her husband passed away. I didn't really get any details if he passed away in the house or anything, but like, I mean, I just like assumed the worst, obviously. But he was a doctor. He was apparently like invented like a bunch of medical devices, so they retired like super early. And I don't know, like the house wasn't extravagant, but like they definitely like had like crazy money. But whatever, we move into this house, and it was like maybe a few months into living there, like I noticed that my sister had been waking up like every single night at around 3 a.m. And I mean, like being a little kid, like she used to wake up a lot, really, like in the middle of the night. But it was like in this house, it turned into like a nightly thing that she would wake up and essentially go up to my parents' bedroom and like sleep with my mom. Well, whatever, I started noticing, and I remember like the one morning, like my mom was like asking my sister if she was like sleeping okay, if like she was really stirring, really waking up, and uh she said that she saw a person, rather a man, with his daughter, and his daughter would wake her up every single night and tell her to get up and come play, and then they would go upstairs and she would like follow the girl up the stairs, and the guy, uh, who I didn't really know what she described the guy as, but I mean, she was a little kid at the time. She said that there was a guy. She said it was her dad, and she would see him every night on the stairs on the way up to my parents' bedroom, and then she would just like sleep in my parents' bedroom and didn't really say much about it because I mean, like I guess she was a little kid. She didn't really like put together how freaky as fuck that was that there was just like a person in our house. Um, but I immediately thought like, oh fuck, like she's seeing something, like this has to be like some sort of ghost or whatever. My mom was like real quick to shut it down, like the minute she brought it up. She was like, oh, like you had to have been dreaming, like it was just a bad dream. I guess you've been, sleeping bad and having weird dreams recently. And regardless, like I thought it was a ghost. Me at the ripe age of 12, I was convinced it was a ghost, so I had to stay up. And I stayed up that whole night, kind of freaking out and waiting for my sister to wake up. And she wakes up, and the whole house is like hardwood floors, so you can kind of hear the creaking and everything. And it was weird. I remember hearing some creaking coming from the living room area, and then I hear what is definitely creaking, like my sister's bedroom opening, and then her starting to walk up towards the stairs. She gets up, I sneak out of bed, and just to go like see if I can, I don't know, put together what exactly she was seeing. The minute I like turn the corner to go look at the stairs, there's like a figure, like a decrepit figure, like I can't even describe it. It looked like a dead person, but like an older man, and his eyes were rotted out. His eyes were black. And he had this lab coat on. He looked like a mad scientist type, like hair all over the place, eyes blackened out, skin was like rotting, and like I don't know. I freaked out. I screamed at 3 in the morning, and my mom comes downstairs. She essentially tells me to like shut up and get the fuck back to bed. But like I don't know. I like freaked out. I almost didn't sleep at all that night, and I didn't see anything since. But like my sister, like she, like I don't know, like she was like waking up way less frequently, and then like eventually just like it stopped entirely. And like I mean, we didn't really see much else in that house. Like that house sort of, we lived in that house for like 2 or 3 years. I don't know, like I still think about it, like that house, like it's super old, which is just like icing on the fucking cake. It's like 120-year-old house, and I don't know, it just screams dead shit. Like once we moved, I got a little older, and I sat down with like my mom and my sister, and we talked about how freaky as fuck that was, and like we were all convinced that she was seeing something that like maybe like children, like the younger they are, the more they see shit, like they have some sort of like spiritual energy about them.
This is the first one that I recorded, and I was just immediately like thrown into a world that I didn't want to be in. Honestly, I was like, damn, do I really want to make this video? Because after this conversation, just listening back to it, the amount of times that he's like, that house, that house, that house, even just listening to him talk when we were on the phone, I was like, this person saw something insane in that house, and like they only lived in it for 2 years for a reason. And that one was too real for me. Just the way that this person is recollecting this, I can tell that like this is not something they enjoy talking about. 2 people experiencing the same thing in this case is like pretty rare, but I think it adds a lot of validity to the story. That I mean, if you don't believe the person, I don't know what's wrong with you, but that story just messed me up.
So yeah, I used to live, this really old house. By the time we moved into it, it was, I don't know, probably like 130 years old, something like that. Again, like being an old house, you hear a lot of like weird noises, a lot of like, like creaking and shit. Um, and oftentimes you would hear, like doors would creak open from the air and shit like that. My room in that house was like a converted sunroom, so it was all windows basically on all the walls. Um, and essentially, from any window you could see, the entire room. So one night, when I was, sleeping in there, getting ready to go to bed, I could hear like scratching or like, like creaking noises on the like roof kind of outside the like left hand window. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. I had never heard that before. So I went over, popped it open, took a look outside. Couldn't see shit because it was like 8 o'clock. Sun was down. So I went downstairs. I told my dad, I'm like, there's a lot of weird noises going on out there. What's going on with this? And he told me, it was probably just a raccoon, squirrel. Go back to bed. Like standard. Dad bugging the kids shit. So, so the next day, I get home from school. I'm just kind of like sitting at my desk, probably playing games and stuff like that. And I like have the window shade was like popped open from last night, and I could see like out the window, like big giant handprint. And then like next to it, I didn't really know what it was at first, but it was like a face print. Like someone had like pushed their face up onto the window. And like, at that time when as a kid, I watched a lot of like Twilight Zone. So like the picture in my head was that, I don't know if you're familiar, the like airplane episode, where the thing is like pushing its face against the window. It looked exactly like that. And I just immediately, at first I was like, okay, that's got to be my hand. I was like sticking my, looking around out there. I went to go wipe it off, and it was all on the outside of the window. And I just like flipped out, and I, ran out, told my dad, I'm like, what the fuck is this? Blah, 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 blah. And he was like, oh, that must have been like a worker or something. We had roofers, a while back. But none of it made sense to me because, if you look at where it is in the house, it's like on that left-hand side. So like you would need, I don't know what they would have been doing up there, number one. Number two, like if anything was like outside that window, it would have to be like on a ladder or like balancing between the two roofs. Like the whole thing was just like eerie as hell. At the time I'm like 11, 10, and I just couldn't even sleep in that room for like, I don't know, like a month or so, 2 months. It just totally freaked me out.
This handprint story, it's particularly scary when you take a look at the room. He sent me photos, and you find out that his room is not on the first floor, not on the second floor, but on the third floor of his house. If you look at the left side where the pink circle is, that's where the handprint was found. This is a conversation where I edited out a lot of the just excruciating details because, there's a lot of minor stuff that happened at that house where it was just like here and there, this happened, that happened, unrelated to the handprint, but a lot of weird and paranormal occurrences where I thought, okay, so this house is definitely haunted, but this handprint is definitely the big selling point for me. Then I get a message from this guy on Discord, and he says, quote, "Hey, not super relevant to the story, but the guy we sold the house to killed his wife and shot himself within a year of moving to that place." How is that not relevant to the story, man? I mean, listen, we gotta get a journalist coming in here. This is ridiculous. I mean, you lived in a haunted house, you sold it, and then there was a murder suicide within a year. Like, I don't care if you're a kid at the time. If I'm there, I'm investigating. I'm sorry. Like this is, as I'm recording this is too much to unpack. But I just got this message after editing together all of this footage, and I'm just disturbed, shocked. What the fuck?
We had an old house when I was 15. I come from a family of 6 kids and 2 parents, all in a single little cramped house. It took us, I don't know, 5 years before we could even begin to think about getting a new place for all of us. So, what happened was we finally got into contact with a family friend of ours, and he agreed to build us a new place on our property to expand our terribly small house into an actual house fitting for all of us. We went through the process of, I don't know, it felt like 2 years before we could actually build this new place. And during the process of digging out the foundation, we found it was half a wall easily of a basement previous that we had no knowledge of a house being there. We found an old car that was compacted into almost nothing. We found the license plate to it and everything, alongside hundreds of smashed jars and glasses. It was all right there, 10 feet underground, right when we were always playing as kids. And we didn't think much of it, you know. We were building a new place on our lot. It's fine. We had a dumpster. We threw it all away. We cleaned up everything. And 2 years later, we actually had an house. And we were so happy, so ecstatic. We kept going into the place while it was being constructed and all that. And then the day came where we demolished our old house, and we all watched from the windows of our bedrooms of our new house like it was our own little entertainment thing. About a week later, I am, like I said, 16 at the time. I was walking from my kitchen back upstairs toward where my bedroom is, and the front door blew open. Now, it was a windy day. I already knew that the wind was howling and everything, so I was like, okay, maybe the door wasn't ever installed right, or doesn't fit the frame, or the locks don't work, whatever. Brand new house, I can forgive any mistakes. As I go to close the door, I hear a voice powerful as the wind gusting, and as raspy as you would imagine the rustling of the trees are. It just goes, "Let me in." And I panicked. I threw myself against the door in an effort to just close it because I didn't know what the hell was making that noise. And I pushed on this door, and I am not a small guy. I am 6'3" and 260 at the time. I could topple a car almost. And I pushed, and the door would not close, and the wind kept getting louder and louder. I felt the house vibrating with the howling of the wind, and I had to just plant myself firmly on the floor and push as hard as I could against whatever this is. I finally get it closed. I finally lock the door, and I find that I'm gasping for air like it took all of my strength to do that. My ears are ringing from the loud howl of the wind and everything, and I can only imagine I was fighting back a demon or a spirit or something. I have no actual idea. But I do have a friend, and she said what happened was a spirit of the old house was trying to find residence in our new house, and I effectively stopped that from happening, according to her. And it's never really left me that that's something that she said and she believes, and I just have no idea what actually happened. I just know I lock that door every single time now.
This one has a little bit of everything, which I love. Even if you aren't scared of the paranormal wind encounter, or if you don't believe in that sort of thing, just the fact that there was an entire underground bunker beneath this person's house, like their entire childhood, that they didn't find out about until they were about 16. I mean, that's an eerie feeling that I feel like doesn't really go away. I've seen a lot of stories online of people that find just entire rooms hidden under their house with like full beds, clothes left behind. That to me is so much scarier than a ghost encounter. She's sleeping. Please do not disturb her. And that is all the time we have for the It's Will Halloween special. If you enjoyed it, let me know. I know the stock footage can be kind of cheesy sometimes, but it took a long time to compile all of that. I had a lot of fun making it. This is definitely the most time I've ever spent on a video, so please let me know what you thought. And yeah, happy Halloween, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. Consider subscribing.